Welcome to the 16th season of The Nitwits, a weekly roundtable discussion on the Penn State Nittany Lions. Our panel includes Neil Riddell of the Altoona Mirror, Mark Brennan of FightOnState.com, Jacob Cowker of WTAJ Sports, and a special guest nitwit each week. The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By Your Rehab Choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
Hello there. Well, for the first time since September 20th, we are talking about a Penn State win on the Nitwits alongside Neil Riddell, Mark Brennan, and Wally Richardson. I'm Jacob Cowker, and the 13-7 victory at Indiana, not exactly the prettiest of wins, but at this point, for this Penn State team, a win is a win, Neil?
Well, yeah, they cannot be picky. And just to be able to stop the bleeding and, go into the stretch run of November, at least feeling really good about the defense, I think was important. And, hey, we all knew this was going to be the toughest year maybe, or the really beginning of the tough times. And so, every game has become a struggle. We know that. So that's what it was to win on the road. They'll take it.
On the trip back, we always, going through airports, you meet up with Penn State fans, and one guy said to me, boy, that almost felt like a loss. And I wanted to say to him, hold on a second. You lost by 20 to this same team last year. Now, granted, different personnel on both sides, but listen, any win at this point, given the circumstances, given that you're coming off 4 losses, given that it had been 6 weeks with a bye, I think is a good win. And as James Franklin, I know it's kind of hyperbole saying it was pretty in his eyes. It had to be pretty in his eyes. And I thought the other cool thing was the fact that the defense was so key in winning that game and dedicating it to Ryan Kaiser. To me, that wipes away. Listen, we know the offense is going to have some struggles for the rest of the year, but I thought the defense, the special team stepped up. There are a lot of good things about that win.
Ending the drought, from a player's perspective, just kind of being able to talk about something that's not you guys just lost. How much of a relief can that be?
I think it's a big relief for them because it's been over a month since they last won a game, so I think they're really feeling good about winning, especially on the road. Like Mark said, that's a place we lost at last year, so to be able to go back out there and win the game, and even though it wasn't the prettiest of wins, it's a win, so we'll take it. I
think the one thing you kind of can frame and maybe is a work of art at this point is the play of this defense with holding Indiana's offense to 0 points. The only points coming on that pick 6. As you guys have been around this program longer than I have, where does this rank at this point, do you think, this particular defense?
Well, the years begin to run together. I just know that this defense has really stepped up when it's been so needed. And their pursuit to the ball, their interchanging of their defensive linemen, keeping people fresh. And, you have a star in Mike Hall. But, I just cannot be more impressed with the first year of not only Bob Shoop, but that whole defensive staff.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be hard to judge this defense against the all-time great defenses at Penn State, only because most of those were really put to the test in a huge game at some point. And it's through no fault of their own, but you look at what Ohio State was able to do against Michigan State, and everybody was really talking up Michigan State and putting up that many points, and then you see what Penn State did against Ohio State. That, to me, makes this defense look even better. And, again, I'll dial back to last year. Everybody was like, oh, my God, the team was so much better. Well, the offense was better last year, but everybody was complaining about the defense. And I think it's kind of pick your poison. You know, kind of when you have the sanctions and the limited scholarships, there are going to be things that show up in certain places. And I think this is the year that they were fortunate that they ended up with a little bit of depth and some outstanding talent at key points on defense.
Your thoughts on the defense, Will?
The defense has been outstanding. They really have done a great job. They play a lot of people on defense. Those guys know what they're doing, and they make plays. They don't give up a lot of big plays, and I think they're pretty confident in what they're doing, the schemes that they're running, and it's been a great thing because they've been able to help keep us in a lot of ball games.
You know, I think it was kind of a foregone conclusion that they were going to get routed against Michigan State at the end of the year.
Yeah.
And you know, after watching some of that Ohio State game last night and seeing how this defense is playing, you know, I'm kind of getting the sense that this defense will be able to keep them in. Maybe it's a 10-9 game, but that maybe this defense is playing well enough that they would at least be competitive, at least be representative on
And do
senior
you
day.
get the sense these last couple games when they've been able to stay in against some quality opponents, not that Indiana was any great opponent, but specifically Ohio State, but that they may be dialing things back some offensively, realizing don't make the huge mistake that maybe you made against Michigan, that was a game changer, or the huge mistake you made against Northwestern. Now, clearly there's still some turnovers happening, but maybe they're playing it a little bit closer to the vest, running the ball a little bit more, doing those sorts of things.
And where have we seen that before?
Well, it's been a known thing that Coach Paterno will run the ball against 9 people in the box, so it really doesn't matter. But, yeah, we've always been able to have a good semblance of the running game. That's been a real struggle for us this year, but I think we got a little bit from the running game yesterday, which helped us. And the more that you're not one-dimensional, the more you're able to do things and help yourself offensively.
Yeah, I mean, they stuck with the run long enough to at least bust a big one. You know, the rest of the running game wasn't overly impressive, but they got the one big play that they needed.
Listen, if that's how you have to win the game, the other thing that I liked, and I know we may talk about this a little later, you know, I thought the special teams outside of the blocked field goal, you know, listen, we've been on the punters all year. That, to me, that kid, Pasquarello, played much better, 5 inside the 20. When you're talking about playing field position with this defense, and again, it goes back to the defense. You have to hang your hat on this defense. I think that's going to give you a chance to be in every game. They should have a great chance to win the next 2 games, and then who knows what happens at that last game of the regular season.
All right, well, that'll be the last word for our first segment. When we come back, we'll keep dissecting this win against the Hoosiers. We talked a little bit about the offense there at the end, but we'll go even deeper on what this unit is doing, you know, some pluses, some minuses, maybe which one of those weighs more, in your opinion, moving forward for this team when we come back.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need.
Now back to the Nitwits. A roundtable discussion of Penn State football.
Well, look at Nittanyville as the campers were setting up tents a couple weeks ago from that shot, and I guess
that's not for Temple.
We'll see what the Nittanyville attendance might be for this Temple game. Well, before we start back up, let's start with this stat. In 3 Big Ten road games this year, Penn State has scored the exact number of points, 13, in all of them. Yesterday or Saturday,
You've studied for this show more than any other host.
They have to keep the test scores high. So with that offensive performance, basically one big play was the difference in this game with that Bill Belton 92-yard run, the longest in all of Penn State's history, and that's quite a long history.
Yeah, it sure is. You know, I think they have a chance to win these next 2 games at least, but the one thing I would say is they're going to need a special teams touchdown here eventually. And I know they talked how aggressive they were going to be in terms of attacking punts. They wanted punt returners, although I think Della Valle has done a nice job fielding the punts, whether it's a kickoff return, whether it's a block punt. Eventually, they're going to need something to help boost this team because the defense can't just carry a safe around on its back. So, I think that's kind of a challenge for the rest of the way. They're going to need a little bit more help.
Or is there a game where the offense somehow finds its footing, where something goes right? I mean, it really does seem as if whatever can go wrong does go wrong. The other thing about special teams, though, Neil, what about their coverage units?
Yeah.
I mean, in that game against Indiana, the punt coverage was just absolutely sensational. So, again, there's a situation where you have the defense playing really well, offense kind of just slugging along, and the special teams comes and does a nice job and helps switch field
with
position.
True freshmen, right?
Yeah, I mean, guys getting down there making great tackles, some walk-ons in there doing some things. I mean, while from your days as a quarterback, when you go out there and you struggle a little bit, and the special teams pick you up with a great punt and pinning somebody, how important is that?
That's very important because sometimes when you're struggling and things not quite going your way, you need some help from the other aspects of the team, and special teams is very important. Sometimes the special teams gaffe can cost you the football game, so it's important for the special teams to do their job. And I think offense, that's just what everybody needs to do. Everybody's got to do their job and not just try to be a hero on any one play, but everybody do their job, the 11 people working together, and I think that's when you'll see some good things happen.
You mentioned something about they've dialed some things back maybe on offense and consciously tried not to make the big mistake. And I thought you saw a really good week from Hackenberg, not statistically, but in the sense that there was a lot of talk last week about body language, sideline demeanor. And if you watched him yesterday, even though he was struggling at times and he continues to get hit a lot, he was over there, he was encouraging the offensive line, it seemed there was more interaction. And, hey, let's face it, his leadership, what a challenge for this kid. What a preparation for the next level.
Yeah, and he came out after the game and said, yeah, of course there are probably things I have to work on. And I like the fact that Franklin has said, and I'll say it over and over and over again because it's true. He's still 19 years old, won't be 20 till next Valentine's Day. This kid has a lot on his shoulders. And I mentioned last week, they just have to try to get that weight off his shoulders. So this week, even when he made the mistakes, number one, I'm not, the one play was just a great play.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the other play, Belton probably could have caught. So I thought it was a pretty good game for him overall. There may have been some things he missed, but I just thought he calmed down a little bit and wasn't so maybe tough on himself and his teammates and just kind of took it easy. And I think that was positive for him.
Yeah, it didn't really seem to snowball like it's been in these past couple of weeks where, what is happening on the field is one thing, but then you add to it with how you're interacting with teammates, with how you're carrying yourself, and it kind of snowballing a little bit to kind of keep it in perspective a little bit more. How helpful is that?
I think it's very helpful. And one thing about the game, you just got to take it one play at a time. If you get down by 17 points, there's not a 17-point play. Mm-hmm. So you've got to be very methodical in the things that you do and just really concentrate on getting your job done, knowing what your responsibility is. And that's how you make things positive happen.
And we were just seeing it right here, Jay. I mean, Bill Belton, that's the play after. Now, obviously, they kicked off, but after the pick six, the rest of the offense comes back and picks Hackenberg up. Now, maybe they only had one huge play in the game, but could it have been possibly at a better time? And you're starting to see some positive signs in my eyes.
And the offensive line has been beaten up all year, but, you had Gaia. You had Laurent.
Diefenbach got back in
James had a nice block to help
open
up that play.
Yeah.
Wally, what about, we talk about the positives, what about the goal line offense was not a positive? They got to get that in. They can't leave those kind of points on the field, and it led to a blocked field goal. What were you seeing as far as how they were bunched up in there?
Well, I think, it wasn't a whole lot of lanes to run. And when you get down in goal line situations, it's all about keeping the defense from penetrating. You got to get some movement up there, and when you fail to do that, that makes it tough for a back to get into the end zone. So I think you got to take advantage of those opportunities. And one thing that we've done not a great job of this year is kicking too many field goals instead of scoring 6 points, and that's what gets you losses.
We heard about those red zone wrinkles. They kind of bunched it together there on the goal line, something that's been uncharacteristic maybe of this particular team. Was that, do you think, the wrinkle, or were there other ones that we didn't see or that maybe didn't exist?
I think that was some gamesmanship on Franklin's part. I think what they were trying to do there, and I'm just guessing, I didn't ask specifically about this, I think they were trying to get that offensive line some confidence.
Yeah.
I think they're trying to, hey, bang this in, but I think they have to understand what you have in your offensive line is what you have, and it's just not equipped for that. And when they're down there, I'd rather see them spread it out every single time, even if you are going to run it. I just don't know. Even when they bring in the extra linemen, it just doesn't seem like they're comfortable in those sets.
All right, more Nitwits is on the way with Saturday's win. Penn State is now 1 win away from bowl eligibility in a Big Ten conference that kind of has everybody scratching their heads. We'll talk about where Penn State maybe is fitting in now that things are just almost not topsy-turvy, but jumbled in this Big Ten conference when we return.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Monarch Cleaners for all your cleaning needs. By your rehab choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life.
Jordan Hill from the Penn State Nittany Lions. You're watching the Nitwits.
Talk about Throwback Thursday. This is apparently Throwback Nitwits. Jordan Hill, very productive.
With
With
Seattle?
Seattle. He's
Yeah.
getting out there, getting it done at the pros now. Penn State getting it done from a winning perspective for the first time in more than a month. Now a win away from bowl eligibility. Where's this team fit now that this Big Ten is just kind of all up in the air at this point? Almost?
Yeah, I don't know that it's as important where they fit necessarily in the Big Ten. I mean, I think we've seen at the Big Ten is you never know what's going to happen. I mean, and that part of it has actually been fun. But to me, the fact that they had the ability to still play for the bowl, they didn't have that at the beginning of the season. And for them to get that after that losing streak, after the game, some of the younger guys, Hackenberg included, said, now our real focus is on getting that next win, for the seniors, for the guys who have stuck with this program through the very difficult times. And I will go back to something I've been saying all along that, if somebody would have told you when the sanctions came out, if you're a Penn State fan and somebody would have told you when the sanctions came out that Penn State was going to be 1 win away from bowl eligibility at this point of 2014, I think everybody would have raised their hand and taken it.
Yeah, and plus it would get them those. I think it's another dozen, 15 practices.
15 practices, yeah.
That they can help develop some of these younger players and keep everybody engaged. Through December. I think this Final Four is reshaping the whole landscape. So everybody who's not in that, it's going to be a little kind of an exhibition season, but
it already was.
Fan base,
it already was,
right.
Wasn't it? I mean, and now there's 4 teams in it as opposed to 2, but it's still, and it is an exhibition, and it is. You talk about those 15 practices. The offensive line really could benefit from those 15 practices.
Yeah, I think that's important. And, when you're going to a bowl game every year, you're getting those extra 15 practices, and that's really important to the development of your team for the next year as you move forward and try to get the guys prepared for the next season.
Now, do those 15, does that include the 2-a-days that you guys used to have when you would get down to the bowl
Oh,
site?
man, those bad, not the greatest of memories, that part. But it paid off because by the time game time rolled around, we were ready to go and, just excited ready to beat the brakes off of somebody and go home.
One other quick note of going back to the Big Ten part of it, I'm not sitting here saying that Penn State looks like it's this close to being into that Final Four, in the next year or so. But they look pretty close to being able to be competitive in the realm of that is the Big Ten, which looks like it may be a little bit of a notch down. I mean, it clearly played real well against Ohio State this year, played well against Wisconsin. Now they do have their flubs and stubs along the way. But I think they're a lot closer to being, a mover and shaker in the Big Ten than maybe a lot of us would have thought.
Well, they obviously got to get this offensive line fixed.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was going to be something you have to fix, but you would imagine these kids playing as much as they are now, they would get better. And they, one thing when Franklin came in, he immediately addressed that. So they signed a bunch of kids last year. They have some kids coming in next year. I'm not saying they're going to be ready to play, immediately, but you could see, I think, long term where Penn State fits kind of into the. It's going to be back up near the top of that Big Ten in my view.
Yeah, let's hope for the Big Ten's sake that the champion at least fits in the Final Four. Might be a stretch.
All right, well, that's a little long-term talk. We'll get short-term talk with our predictions as it's a bit of a homecoming for Temple's head coach this week. We'll weigh in on the Nittany Lions versus the Owls when we come back.
The Nitwits are brought to you by the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday.
Prediction time, Temple versus Penn State. Some interesting storylines off the field as much as on the field in this one. We'll talk a little bit about that, but now it is time to give our predictions. I will kick things off. 17-9, Penn State with the win over Temple is my prediction for this week.
Well, Jake, you've been a tough customer for us. We'll see the leaderboard afterwards, but I think eventually they got to put some things together offensively, and to me this would be the ideal time, coming home, riding some better feelings. I'm going to say Penn State 27, Temple 14.
Yeah, now you see, I thought last week they were going to put things together offensively, and they didn't do it. Neil and I watched Temple with Temple lose on Friday night with a Temple grad, and it was absolutely brutal. So I'm going to go Penn State 12, Temple 5.
Ooh, interesting. Wally.
My turn. I'm going to say that our offense gets untracked a little bit this week, and I'm going to go 24, 13, Penn State.
All right, 24-13. Well, let's take a look at the leaderboard. An outside-the-box pick for Mark at 12-5. Maybe he's had too many of those this week or this year, as he's at 0 still. Neil and I splitting the Indiana Bowl, so I'm at 4.5. Neil's at 1.5, which puts him ahead of the guest now, but still behind no winner.
Brennan, I would actually root for you. I'm feeling so bad, but I don't want to be mathematically eliminated. So
I'm rooting for no winner. I'm rooting for no winner.
Hey, pretty cool story with Matt Rule, the State College kid coming home. Wally, former teammate.
Yeah, Matt was in the class right behind me, so got a chance to spend a lot of time with him. Really happy for what he's been able to accomplish with his career coaching, and all the best to him except for this week.
As a State College, somebody who lives there, he played with my brother-in-law, Micah Schrenkel, at State High with those great teams in the early 90s. To see him go to Penn State as a walk-on and then become what he's become and really have to work at every step along the way. Again, as Wally said, if you're a Penn State fan, you should be rooting for this guy every single week except for this one, because he is a good guy, good family, and doing a nice job.
Beat East Carolina.
Good football team.
A lot of good football being played in this area. Of course, Matt Rule, one of those players who's made it to that coaching rank. We'll see you next week for the Nitwits.
The Nitwits are brought to you by Irwin Financial Raymond James, an independent firm and firm foundation for your financial future. Coldwell Banker, no one will work harder to sell your home. By Doctors Howells, Reed, and Solani, orthodontics for children and adults. By Fiore True Value on 6th Avenue, Altoona. Just ask rental. Buy what you want, rent what you need. By Monarch Cleaners, for all your cleaning needs. By Your Rehab Choice, Health South Altoona. Ask for us by name. By Courtesy Motors of Altoona, where courtesy means a great deal. By the Allegro, where fine cuisine is a way of life. By the Altoona Professional Hearing Aid Center, your hearing aid healthcare professional. By EasyToUse.com, your Yellow Pages connection in print and online. By FightOnState.com, as close as you get to Penn State football without putting on a helmet. And by the Altoona Mirror, featuring Penn State game day every Friday. You can also see the Nitwits on AltoonaMirror.com. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.